Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nova Talks. We have Jason Fishman with us today. Please, Jason, introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here, Hamley. I am a marketer. I run an investor acquisition agency. What that means is we work with startup, growth stage companies, have worked with over 500 of these on capital raises. We target investors with advertising and outreach, bring them down marketing funnels, and collectively have raised hundreds of millions of dollars in capital using these digital marketing approaches, content marketing, advertising, outreach. That's how we're able to do it. I showcase the findings on my podcast, Test Optimize Scale. I have over 200 episodes out. Speak at a variety of conferences, Forbes Agency Council, a variety of other professional associations, and I am an open book. So I'm here to tell you the exact formulas and speak to how you could effectively raise capital using the internet.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that milestone. 200 episodes is incredible. So that brings the question, how long have you been doing this for?
The years fly by. I got into the career force in 2008. First as an action sports consultant. I grew up here in Southern California, snowboarding, skating, surfing. That was my bridge into marketing, and began working for a mobile advertising network around 2011. Got deep into the world of ad tech at that point. Uh, it wasn't even a network when I had started there. We were representing individual properties and built out that product with the founder. So uh, advertising, I mean, basically since about 2008, created the agency in 2014 as a growth marketing firm, a small operation, uh, enjoyed working with early stage companies and moved from the world of, Fortune 500s, running advertising there, to get involved in the Los Angeles, LA startup scene. And then by 2015, we noticed fundraising was a common theme among our clientele. Whether they wanted us to work on the marketing section of a business plan that they could present to an investor, a pitch deck, a first campaign, and a successful one at that, to then get more capital from that investor pumped into marketing. Even participating in the investor meetings was always part of the discussion. So when I was introduced to Regulation D, 506C, which is a legal way of saying you can market to accredited investors, you could solicit accredited investors, high net worth individuals. The light bulb went off because suddenly I was able to use my digital marketing skill set. I was able to tap into audience data through high-level data partnerships that I had, and we saw success on our first advertising campaigns to accredited investors. The laws opened up further in 2016 to be able to reach retail investors, any adult, and to date, I've now built up our own first-party audience data to over 1.8 million historical, I'll call it equity crowdfunding investors. But we apply this data to Web3 campaigns. We use it for real estate campaigns, some with up to a $500,000 minimum, where the retail campaigns may have $100, $500 minimum. Fintech, golds, I mean, anywhere we're targeting investors and bringing them down marketing funnels, we've been able to show success.
It's incredible, man. So, being in SoCal, Southern California, that's prime real estate for, this Silicon Valley. So for capital raising, you're probably in a very affluent location. How much do you think that played a role into what you're doing today?
It's a good question. Uh, you know, Part of me thinks, hey, what we're doing is online, could essentially be anywhere. But you're right. I was attending a lot of conferences, a lot of meetups, several nights a week in the early years. So was shaking hands with different fund managers, VCs. We worked out of an accelerator. Uh,
Mm.
and then I led an event there, Marketing Mondays, for a while. I mean, we were definitely trying to be seen in this ecosystem, and I was able to hear firsthand from those who were, creating the space in terms of what regulated investment crowdfunding is. Before it even went into law, it's a matter of when, not if, and I was able to see these people in 3D and go to their offices for meetings. So it absolutely made a difference. Being in Los Angeles, the entertainment capital, if you will. I think that's changed at this point, but historically, there's a lot of entertainment that's occurred here. Uh, we worked on film projects early on. In fact, once we got attention from the crowdfunding world after the successful Reg D campaigns, but we worked on a volume of Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns. We were getting white labeled by agencies there and working on the advertising campaigns. Uh, that got us involved with different film projects. Go to the studio backlot for meetings, and it was an exciting time. Work with film projects now too. We just finished Daniel film, seven-figure campaign about the biblical story. Creators were just on my podcast. I've spoken at Digital Hollywood, Digital Entertainment World. I've spoken at a variety of entertainment conferences at this point too. And to your point, all here in Los Angeles. There's no shortage of entertainment events out here.
It's incredible. So yeah, it seems that you have branched out to different industries and you've done a little bit of many things. What are
Yes.
some other ventures that you have joined that you've done throughout your career?
Other ventures throughout my career. Well, working in the mobile advertising space, I'll start it there for a moment. I talked about the action sports background and how that
Hmm.
led to accounts in that space. Eventually, um, millennial focused accounts, Gen Y at the time we called it focused accounts. But working in the mobile advertising space, we were representing print publishers and their iPad apps, essentially, their tablet apps. And they would have a newsstand and a whole list of their magazines. And then we'd place these full screen ads, these interstitials that are interactive into those. So I like to say I worked with the full spectrum of different verticals, budget levels, timelines during that period, got a sense of what worked, what didn't work. The same has been true for the investor acquisition space, where we've worked with everything from tunnel boring companies to foldable tiny homes to mobile devices that you earn while using the device and have additional privacy filters to yachting tours. That's going to be an upcoming episode of my podcast. Full variety. Data compaction. We've worked with professional boxers, musicians, athletes. It's exciting because we get to be at the forefront of, I hate the term pop culture, but mainstream media, in the sense that what I'm reading about in the news, I'll probably get a call from a startup that's doing something in that same area, if I haven't already begun working with one.
So how would you go about vetting a startup at that point? I know that in Southern California, there's different characters, there's a lot of personalities. And if you have any experiences, you can kind of walk us through either good or bad, anything that sticks out working with founders or VCs in general. I guess that's a two-part question.
Yeah. So, in terms of vetting, we get a good amount of our business from referral partnerships. So I mentioned equity crowdfunding. Those campaigns are typically hosted, run, launched on a portal as described by the SEC. Uh, Issuers, companies that are offering stock, offering shares, issuing securities, uh, have to file a form. If it's a regulation crowdfund campaign, Reg CF, it's a Form C, which allows you to raise up to $5 million from both retail and accredited investors. Reg D, there's no cap, but it's just accredited investors. And there's Regulation A plus, which is up to $75 million, a much more in-depth filing though. So while that filing is occurring, the issuer is working with the lawyer, with the CPA, and likely a portal. Perhaps it's a broker dealer that's building out their offering page, and that's how they're getting through the compliance. We'll often get an email, a call from one of those groups saying, hey, you have to meet this founder. They're doing amazing things. Also meet the agency. They work on a lot of these deals. Move to a discovery call, go through the proposal process. And through that discussion, if they come through an introduction, that immediately helps with the vetting process. Hanley, I'm sure you have a very strong network. If you called us tomorrow and said, hey, talk to these guys, I'm not going to be, poking on them too hard, as much as just trying to learn about them, share about us, and see how we could potentially collaborate, see how we could be of value. But on my sheet, whether I share the results with the client or not, one of the main things I want to know about is their audience. If they have virtually no audience and we have to create it from the ground up, if they have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million people in their email list that are regularly receiving content from them, if they have those increments of social media followers, if the followers are engaging at a 1% level, a 5% level, higher, the audience to me is a telltale, at least an initial platform to gauge their trajectory. If they have 10,000 email subscribers, we may be able to get 200 conversions day one. If those are $1,500 investments, that could be 300 grand in a very quick window of time. So that social proof, that third party validation speaks very loudly to then cold audiences that we're bringing to that deal, to that opportunity,
Hmm.
to that funnel. So one of the first things I want to look at is the audience. I also want to have an understanding of how much social proof that they have. People don't believe what they see online. The more publishers, newsletters, podcasts, YouTube channels, blogs, social posts, tags, you name it, that point to this company, the better. And we're able to list it on the offering page and the pitch video and the advertisements and the content. We just want to make it abundantly clear. People love what these guys are doing. I could get more into the product. I could get more into the team. I could get more into the story and how it's articulated. A lot of groups need additional support there. If it's an offline raise, meaning let's say it's a Reg D and there's an investor call with the
Hmm.
founder or with the investor relations team as part of it, wanting to have uh, a perspective on what that closing process looks like, because we'll see varied results from one group to the next as soon as we take it offline. Uh, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. If it's an in-person meeting taking place at the factory, like some of our clients offer in their lead forms, it could be a higher closing rate. But I do want to look at that because the conversion rate that occurs offline is going to vary drastically in that scenario, where if it's all online, there's going to be more consistencies. So those are a few things that run through my brain, but there's also a gut feeling. There's a lot of other aspects of mainstream dynamics, comparables, what's happening in the world, current events that have to be taken into account.
Yeah, of course, and intuition is likely going to be a big part of that as well. So it's safe to say that you believe that branding is pivotal when it comes to all this as well, whether it's for the company, the individuals running it, the team behind the product or service. What is one piece of advice you would give, let's say a startup that you're currently working with, to kind of evolve their brand from whatever it is at that point in time?
You could spend months, you could spend years working on the brand. Top companies in the world do it, and they already have a brand, and they're constantly working on revisions. And sometimes just one little color, one little change after months of focus groups and months of different agencies bidding for the work and going through their strategy process and going through their design concepts and mock-ups. Don't cut corners when it comes to branding. Put enough time in. Follow best practices. There's a million AI tools and articles online and things to pull from in terms of what a good branding process consists of. What is your style guide? What does your logo look like? What are your colors? Who are your target audiences? What do they experience when looking at your logo? What do they feel when reading your content, when hearing the founder speak, when listening to your thought leadership? It's all about that connection between the target audiences, which you should know inside and out, variance. It's not just one audience, and you need to validate with data over time, and what your color pattern, your typography uh, looks like. And then you have to stay strict to those rules. There are occasions where you go outside of it, but there's this saying: people only notice bad design, and it's often on a subconscious level. it could be reflected on your product. It could be reflected on your character, your personality. It could be reflected on the company and comparisons to other groups competing for the same markets. Maybe not a direct competitor for product, but going after the same markets, and same budgets, the same mind share at that. So you really want to test it out, and then don't just go with what you like. Get feedback from your target audiences. You could run surveys. You could speak to people offline. Make sure there's conclusive enough data. But just because I love the way something looks doesn't mean the audience even cares. And I can't produce enough conversions for a company to sustain, let alone grow. You need your audience to do that. So you need to make sure it's not what you think, it's not what I think, it's what the audience is physically responding to. You could see it in the analytics, and then have scalable channels so you could scale it up from there. I love advertising. I love advertising on social media platforms. And one of the reasons why is you can market test. You can say, hey, I want to run this campaign to 6 different audiences, and I want to see how they respond. And each audience is going to see 8 different creatives. And from there, we're going to look to identify pockets of performance. You have to have enough traffic running through each of these. I'll look at groups saying, hey, meta ads didn't work for me, and they've had less than 1,000 visits to their site. It's like, you don't
And
really
maybe
know
just two
what you're doing
variations.
yet. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing to even optimize towards. It's like, okay, that didn't work. We're writing off the whole channel. When really you want to manage it to a point of effectiveness.
Definitely. So I'm gonna now transition the conversation a bit more towards technology, and I definitely want to hear your thoughts on the current state of AI and how much that affects your current role.
AI. Everyone wants to talk about it on every
I
podcast.
left it
And
very open. I want to see where you take this conversation.
sure. I first learned about AI in the world of programmatic advertising, advertising that you buy on exchanges. You look to use machine learning technology, buy at wholesale rates. You can be very specific about the ad inventory, but it goes beyond human capabilities. Essentially, if you were to ask me, how can you target an audience with a media buy, I could probably name 50 filters off the top of my head, which is pretty good. But a programmatic advertising exchange, the programmatic media buying technology that's underlying will optimize off millions of lines of data and in the matter of milliseconds. So it is machine learning. It can say, hey, on Tuesday afternoons, we're going to bid higher for ad placements in Austin and Silver Lake and Brooklyn, but never Miami or Chicago. And it can do this across millions of different optimizations at the same time. So it gets smarter. It starts seeing which audiences, which day and time of week, which geolocation, coming from which sites, coming from which apps, using which placements are performing, and do more of what's working, phasing out more of what's not. And the more media it runs, the smarter it gets. Some of these platforms define themselves as AI and predictive technology. And it worked. A lot of our campaigns were doing extremely well. So that was really my introduction to AI. I mean, I read about it, science fiction, different movies, a lot of podcasts over the past 10 years. So we're talking 2014 that I'm referring back to programmatic media buys. A lot of podcasts over the past 10 years and doom and gloom visions of the future and how that's affected. And, 2001 Space Odyssey. I mean, there's so many different aspects of AI. AI is a broad thing. It's like saying the word tool. A tool can be, a hammer, it can be a car, it can be so many different things, including AI. So, how does it affect me? Well, I'm very inquisitive. I say that because ChatGPT tells me that. ChatGPT also tells me I'm a fact checker and I'd be a top user and I'd be double checking that to make sure it's true. I am constantly using it for information, which is basic function. You could use these tools to build websites, build apps, and in very quick windows of time. It's barely scratching the surface of what's possible there. But for me, I get a lot of value out of that. I use it a lot for strategy. I'm building my own prompts to create more in-depth research for our strategy program, the 8-point plan, and places to look, places to go. I used to, pour a cup of coffee and Google around for a couple hours. Now I could set up different prompts where I'm getting more in-depth information and in a matter of minutes. And then it's all a matter of what you do with the information. That's what I first learned about the internet in the 90s is anything you've ever thought is available online. You have to find it, and then it's all about how you apply it. And that's the difference from one person to the next. So you give an AI tool to a creative director, you give the AI tool to an account director, strategy director, let's say, you give it to a media buyer. They're all going to use it different ways. Some may shrug away from it altogether, but I love using it for strategy. I love using it for comparisons. I love using it to get quick answers. Those questions that you ask, I wonder if. My creative team uses it to enhance graphics, enhance videos, create videos without having to do a shoot. We use it for some of the media buying optimizations and to get a better analytical read on what's occurring. We use it to scrape data. Data mining makes us more powerful because we're able to target custom audiences. Use it to splice up videos, use it to do transcriptions, use it to do highlights in the content. I like to use it to improve our writing, not to create the writing, but for social media posts, for email, webinar recaps, interviews, press releases. We use it to enhance. For me, though, it's that sounding board of ideas. It's that uh, research team that I could ask anything and they know what I'm talking about and give me, a list of answers immediately after. It's the comparables. It allows me to go through spreadsheets of thousands of columns, thousands of rows, and be able to, put it into concise information with quartile percentages right away. And I use that in my content. So those are some of the things that I apply it towards.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me you embody the fact that it's no longer anymore about what you know, but rather it's about how you leverage what the machines know, what
Yes.
technology knows, and using that to your advantage.
Well said. Yes, exactly. Because everyone has these apps. Maybe not everyone's a paid user, but everyone has access to something. Some people don't use it anymore. Some people use it too much. Some people use it for basic things. I try to be careful what I use it for and not have it as a crutch as much as a tool. I want to make sure my brain's still functioning. I feel like my mathematics have lost a beat as I use a calculator for everything to be sure, or I used to run those numbers in my head. I mean, hey, I'm a media buyer. I could still see the numbers in a lot of cases, but if I can't figure out the answer in a moment, I get discouraged because I used to be able to, and that's because of ongoing calculator use. I don't want that to happen with AI, so I'm kind of careful about what I use it for. I've also heard founders, I've heard uh, entrepreneurs. Um, Aspirational entrepreneurs, I'll call it as well,
Mhm.
kind of think that AI is the cure for everything and the growth hack to everything. Meanwhile, they're not using it to generate any revenue for themselves or any meaningful revenue. They're more of uh, preaching the story without using it for themselves, or at least in a way that's physically driving. I do think it's all a matter of who's behind the wheel. So if someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm creating a business. I just started this. I worked on this business plan. Take a look at it." I'm probably going to be able to immediately tell if it's written by an AI. Sometimes it feels soulless. Also, sometimes it'll be referencing false information. And if it's lacking depth, let alone sounds like a chat GPT type system, um, it's an immediate turnoff. The same is true with advertising copy. The same is true with graphic design and visuals. That filter, you kind of tell, hey, this is from an AI. It places somewhat of a negative connotation on things. So again, I like using it to improve versus create. There are some scenarios where it's far more streamlined and a better approach towards creating. So I absolutely point towards that as a good thing in those scenarios. But if a human could do it better, you should probably start with human work and then maybe polish it up with AI. Uh, that's what I would add.
Yeah, definitely using it to augment rather than to replace. Also, GPT has a huge tell. I mean, I have many, but the most obvious being that M dash every time you have a paragraph long of a prompt generated by GPT, it has these M dashes that just aren't natural. And then also, so, sometimes I go on LinkedIn and I'm reading people's posts, and you can tell it has an overuse of emojis, or ChatGPT has this structure where generally it's kind of like an if-then statement. If X, then Y, and it kind of keeps that same trend going. So over time, I'm not sure if you realize it or not, but I can sort of pick out which ones were created by ChatGPT and those that were actually handcrafted by a person. And to me, that makes a big difference in this day and age now, where it's very easy and sort of cheap to get an answer that wasn't actually fully generated by yourself. And I'm not saying not to use the tools, but also personalizing and polishing up your own work is what this should be used for, not to completely plagiarize what's out there and you not knowing whether or not it's true.
Correct. I think that's a good way to look at it. And like you said, you shouldn't be able to tell it's AI, meaning any use of these tools needs to be so good that it's unrecognizable from the audience, in my opinion. There are also times when you want to be very clear about it of, hey, this is AI, and it impresses the audience, but you shouldn't try to fool them and fail at
Hmm.
it. You either have to commit and they can't tell, or you have to be very upfront.
Yeah. And I think now people are probably they're gonna value flaws a little more on social media because that'll let them know, hey, a person actually wrote this and they made this mistake, and now it feels a bit more trustworthy if it comes off across it with a mistake. I think maybe just a few years back, you may have gotten clowned on for writing a blog post with three misspells. So it's strange in the direction in which we're heading, how things are quickly changing and evolving. But you mentioned something earlier that was very important that I kind of wanted to go over really quickly. So me personally, I'm a fan of processes over goals. And now it almost seems that everyone is going towards just streamlining towards a goal using these tools, as you mentioned, instead of actually utilizing it to build, they're kind of just using it to, see, the best way to put it would be there's no actual process behind, and they want to achieve either a fiscal goal or a revenue goal. Is it the process, or is it having the ultimate goal and finding any way to achieve it?
It's all about the process. I mentioned I have a strategy plan model called the 8 point plan.
Hmm.
I've written articles about it. I've led in-person workshops about it, paid workshops. I've led all types of digital instructional videos on it as a guest. And I like to look at a marketing plan as an algorithmic roadmap. I'm using the word marketing. You could take that out. It could be a business plan, same concept. I like to look at the end goal of a set period of time and then work backwards each week from there until, the present, and basically determine what milestones need to be reached all the way through. So if it's the beginning of the month and you're looking to have a new website created, don't just say I'm going to create a new website. Have a date in mind, figure out what you need 3 weeks in, figure out what you need 2 weeks in, figure out what you need at the end of the week. If you think you could do it in a day or two using AI, fantastic. Allow time for more testing. Maybe it's a week-long timeline, but you want to be able to figure out what the process looks like to get there. The standard operating procedure is what we call it internally, and they continue to be tweaked, managed over time. I love digital marketing because of the numbers. The only way to measure is with numbers. So that can be confronting towards some people because you could fail. There's a lot of exercises online to remove the emotions around that. Some famous entrepreneurs say things like success is, bouncing from one failure to the next with optimism and learnings and improvement. So you have to be able to accept, hey, we may lose this game. But I think the whole idea is you have a plan. If you fail to plan, you're kind of planning to fail. And if we were driving cross country, we're on different sides of the country. If I said, hey, let's meet in this middle section of the country for this business meeting, uh, I'd have to, come up with the map, come up with the route. I actually don't want to count on just the, map program. I'd have to figure out a time. I'd have to figure out the stops. Maybe there's some points of interest I want to check out. While I'm driving, things are going to occur. Maybe a highway shut down, traffic, maybe there's a storm, some type of event. I had to change my route the other day for a wildfire, Sunday, 2 days ago. And you shift with the conditions. But you need that underlying plan. You need to be able to say, hey, here's how we're going from 2 people to 35 people. Here's how we're going from $100,000 raised to $1.25 million raised. Here's how we're going from $50,000 a month in revenue to $500,000 a month in revenue. And for me and a marketing approach, these are the channels. Here's how much I'm paying to reach these audiences that I'm going to A/B test. Here's how I'm going to drive traffic to the funnel. Click-through rate, cost per click, all of the different numbers around it. I know the cost to get that many people there. Here's the conversion rate we're shooting for. Maybe it's 2%. Here is what we're going to do to optimize if we're hitting lower than that in this period of time. Here are the channels that we're going to scale up. I'm not just hoping something goes viral. I'm not crossing my fingers to get something picked up by press. I'm going to have scalable traffic sources. So once I see it working, I can intentionally get to the next levels. I'm going to have enough content pieces set out inside the funnel so I could figure out what's getting the strongest response and do more of what's getting us a larger conversion rate. And I look at the same thing for SOP. So if I'm creating our media buyers standard operating procedure for the second half of 2025, if I'm working on any one position, I want to know what they're going to be doing. I want to know when I'm going to check in on it and what to look at. I want to know what potential changes I'm going to make ahead of time. I don't like to just shoot in the dark and see what happens.
So to summarize, no plan is absolute. It's more of a guide helping you, a strategic guide helping you reach your goal towards the end. But you must be able to pivot and optimize the routes during the the process, not before.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. If someone comes to me tomorrow and says, we're creating a tequila company and these celebrities, these athletes are involved, we're going to blow up. Say, okay, great. How are you going to blow up? What are your channel marketing concepts? What's your business development process? What, geolocations are you going after first? What marketing channels are you using there to get that awareness from your end audience? What are they going to do to actually care? What are your projections for month 1, quarter 1, year 1? What are you going to do if you're not driving enough? And if they just keep pointing back to who's involved, there's more risk involved than actual, strategy. There's not a thought process. They say a plan is all about the process and less about the end result of what you've created. You're asking yourself the tough questions. So someone else comes to me and says, hey, we're going to create a tequila company. We don't have any celebrities involved, but here's what we're going to be doing for biz dev. Here are the people who are going to be selling it. Here are some of the deals we've already negotiated to get channel marketing budgets. Here's what we're going to do for larger marketing from there. Here's what we're going to do for field marketing. Here's what we're going to do for all these things. These are our goals here. These are our goals there. If this is off, wow, I'm far more likely to invest in the second person. As an agency, I'm far more likely to want to be involved with that group. You want to know what you're getting into before you set on your journey.
Most definitely. And I now have one final question for you. Would love to hear your opinion here, given your background. I'm sure you're well aware of the term vibe coding and how there are an infinite number of SaaS companies coming out of the woodworks leveraging AI to sell services to businesses. What would be your one advice to give to those who are looking to raise, let's say, $1 million in a seed round?
Depends on which avenue they're going to raise capital. If you can raise that from your first degree network, friends, family, neighbors, peers, former classmates, former colleagues, former employers, uh, go there first. you have different groups of people who invest into you, and those individuals likely have an interest in seeing you succeed. It's a much warmer conversation. Some people don't like to do this. They're embarrassed, they're shy, they're bashful. There's that glooming risk that, it's going to fail and they're going to lose whoever's money it is. So you could focus on the fear, but what if it works? What if it's great? What if you have the next unicorn? Those people are going to be pretty pissed off at you that they couldn't invest at the early stage and at
You
an
didn't give them
entry
the
level
opportunity.
valuation.
Hmm.
So don't hold them back. They're adults. Let them make their own decision. Explain the risk. Be very transparent. Communicate with them what you're afraid about, but why you're investing your time into it. That means something to them. So I would start there. Uh, you can then look to work with groups that can introduce you to investors, large scale, get them on the cap table. Some of them are going to look for more control over time. If you're getting involved with VCs, and most of the top companies are VC backed, it's a good thing, but you got to be careful because you could get involved with the wrong groups. They could look to take over control if you're not hitting your goals. There's a lot of things that they're doing on a daily basis right now that they can then bring to the conversation later. They're playing this game, so they're more likely to win. You can go after other angel investors. I like the idea of strategic investors, not just people who are looking for an ROI, but strategic investors. So other companies in the space, groups that could benefit from your success. So if they invest into you, could get them there quicker. There's this world of regulated investment crowdfunding. Sites like Start Engine and WeFunder and Republic and Net Capital. Dealmaker gives you tools to build it onto your own site. And you still need a groundswell. You need to be able to show, hey, here's over 100K raised on our offering page, people who went through the page. Here's over 250, 500. But then you could tap into their audience as you're hitting different milestones and see more capital come in. If they're a platform, you can market, you can run advertising. I mentioned we have audiences of people who invest in these types of deals. There's other ways you could find them online, and through advertising, you could drive them to your deal. You shoot for a 10x return on advertising spend. Some campaigns perform dramatically higher than that. Some don't perform at all, but that's the goal amount that you're going for, especially as you get to a closing and you're selling out your shares, or you're hitting your closing date and there's a fear of missing out. You can outreach to investors, try not to come off as spam, start, geo-targeted, offer to meet people in person so that they know you're real and you stand out to them more. Proximity has power to it. Have a content calendar prepared regardless of your approach, even if you're just going after VCs. Have active social feeds and active email newsletter. Be putting out thought leadership content on a regular basis and show them this is a moving ship. It is hitting its goals with or without you. This is not dependent on your investment. Now's your opportunity to hop on board. Don't miss out on this. That is far more compelling than, hey, we need this capital, but it's going to be great. And a lot of groups want to overlook the content marketing. It's not direct response oriented, but at the same time, that's how you get a higher closing rate, a higher conversion rate from anyone you're going after. And do the right research, look at the right comparables, what other SaaS companies, what other vibe coding groups have recently raised, which ones have exited, which ones are growing. Talk about that in your story. There's also learnings from their marketing. What are they doing to reach investors? What are they doing to reach their target audience? Success leaves clues.
Incredible wisdom. Jason, where can our audience find you?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Jason Fishman, uh, Marina Del Rey, Los Angeles. But you'll recognize me. Reach out. I'll connect. And you can go to our website, digitalnicheagency.com. Can submit questions, inquiries through there. My podcast, Test Optimize Scale, I'd point you to YouTube or any audio channel. We do a monthly webinar, and I have a list of guest appearances. So welcome to check out more content there, but please feel free to reach out.
Jason, thank you. This was an incredible conversation. I had a lot of fun.
Thanks, Hamley.
Appreciate
I
you
enjoyed
coming
it as
on.
well. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, everyone.